Hey everyone, this video is going to be very different from every other video I've made on my channel. This isn't going to be some highly edited commentary video about some dumb challenge I did for the game. This is going to be a video from Chris, not MistahFeet, a Genshin player who's been playing since like July 2022, I think, who is AR60 and just has a lot of stuff they want to say about the game. I'm not quitting because, believe it or not, I still have fun doing my challenges and making those videos for you guys. It's actually my main account that I've been losing interest in. Aside from some passive-aggressive remarks that are made in some of my videos, I don't usually give my general thoughts on the game. My videos are centered around the challenges and the stories of those runs rather than my thoughts on the game. So I just kind of wanted to express my opinions about the game and my concerns. And even though this video says Rant in the title, I'm not going to be yelling my lungs out and calling the game bad. I really just want to say what's on my mind. If it's not obvious, I love the game and I just want to voice my concerns. And this video is also being done live. I don't really have a script for it, but I do have some notes to help me guide through this. I'm not sure what order I'm going to talk about this in, but I'll edit it in post. So if you want to see like timestamps for a certain thought on X, Y, and Z, they will be in the description. And a couple of things before I start this, I just want to say that I want this video to be a discussion. I know that like I'm going to forget about some topics that you guys are probably interested in, but I'm also curious about what you guys think about the game. Like, do you think it's just like in the best position it's ever been in, or do you also share some frustrations? And lastly, I am going into this video with the full expectation that my voice will not be heard. I have absolute confidence that none of these changes I want in the game will probably ever happen, and I might as well be getting dono-walled by Hoyoverse. But I don't really care. This is still what I want to say. I just want to voice my opinion.
That's just my opinion. Go ahead and cancel me. I don't care.
Yo,
MistahFeet.
shut the up, bro.
And I know that some of my questions about certain topics could be answered with just stuff like, it's a business, they want to stretch out playing time, or it's just a game, who cares? And a whole bunch of other shit. I'll be honest, I don't really care about that. Because right now, I just want to yap. And who knows, maybe my wishes will be added to this game, and this video will be dated horribly. Or some of these things may already be in the game, and I'm just an idiot. But I digress, let's just go ahead and start this. The first things I'm going to talk about are the common complaints like no endgame content and increased resin. For me, I kind of accepted that we wouldn't be getting any endgame content at all a long time ago. Like, I'm talking my first 3 to 4 months of playing the game. We have the Abyss, but honestly, I hate the Abyss. It's just not fun. I don't have any problems 36 starring the Abyss, but I feel bored because I'm basically just hitting a training dummy with 1,000,000 HP that will occasionally fight back. It's not fun. It's boring, especially when they add enemies like Magu and the serpent enemies who either have invincibility frames at the start or they just don't fight you. It seems like the difficulty of Abyss is either having an enemy with too much HP, making the enemy avoid fighting you, or just freezing you so you can't play the game. But even though I personally don't enjoy it, I recognize that there are people that do see the Abyss as a test for their account and they like making optimal teams and stuff like that to help clear it. And there are some things that I do like about the Abyss. I know there's controversy surrounding one floor of the Abyss right now with having to protect the pillars against the large amount of slimes, but me personally, I didn't find it to be too bad, and I actually kind of enjoyed it because at times it did feel like there's a little bit of a challenge trying to defend it. I just wish they did more with the mode of Abyss as a whole. And I know that this game isn't very difficult because it's not really designed to be. The main thing I want from the game is that if they're not going to make the enemies more interesting, make our gameplay more interesting. I would love to see another mode like Abyss, but it has roguelike features from elements in that one event, and I think like 2.2, the domain one. You could add a co-op Abyss, and a change for the main Abyss I would like to see is honestly add more interesting buffs. Genshin just has increase elemental mastery, increase energy recharge. There's interesting ones like getting a damage buff after sprinting for a while, which actually requires you to think some if you want to manage it properly. Look at Wuwa and HSR. Wuwa gave characters another passive in the roguelike event. I don't know if it's still there because I haven't played in a while. And HSR just has a large variety of buffs to choose from that benefit different classes. Could we not have something similar to that, to buffs that increase the effectiveness of like an element or a weapon or like character abilities? And I mean more than just the ley lines, like a buff that you can choose to add to your team and make it so that like I don't know, like if you have a shield on your team, damage just gets reflected back at enemies, and the effect can stack more with more shields you have. You can do like fun team comps with like Zhongli, Diona, other shielders I can't think of off the top of my head, like a 4-shield team comp. That could work. Just cool, interesting stuff like that. And then for the players who don't want to do that and actually test their account, then you can add a 4th card that tells the game, hey, I don't want any buffs. That way they can do it normally. Or hell, if you're not going to update the Abyss, then just make a separate permanent roguelike mode. You already had the formula down, just put it out again. There's so much potential with in-game content that you could literally make a mode where players choose enemies, bosses, their levels, and their placements, and people can just make the in-game content for you. Just give them the tools. People can literally make their own Abyss and just like make a code and send it out to other people to try it. You could just make this a side event, then review the feedback, and then just don't make it permanent and lock it away with all the other fun events you do. We did get new permanent in-game with the theater, and I think it's fine. Is it everything I've ever wanted it to be? No, I don't find it to be that fun, but I'm not going to complain about new permanent content because that's what I want to see more of. I would rather it be here than it not be here. The only thing that worries me about the mode is that it requires so much investment in your characters, which could be demotivating to some, especially if you don't have many high-rank friends who could give you characters, or if you really wanted to play as your favorite characters, well, you can't. Have fun with Toma. Additionally, they added the little extra missions you can do to unlock trails for some characters, which it's nothing big, it's harmless, but I'm glad it's something different for the game. It's just something. We got 200 resin with 4.7, I believe, which was exciting to a lot of people since this is something that we'd been asking for a long time, but when it happened, I just kind of felt like whatever. This change didn't seem like it happened because they finally listened to us, but rather because of WoW's release, if I'm just being honest. I mean, seriously, why would they give us 200 resin when HSR and ZZZ both have 240 resin and 6-minute recharge rates compared to our 8? And plus, they just released a mode that encourages you to build a lot of characters. So wouldn't it make sense to increase the resin system and recharge rates so we have an easier time to build those characters? And on the topic of resin, this may be a hot take, but I think we should just remove condensed resin or change how it works. Like seriously, why can't we just make the domains have a 40 cost with the condensed rates and turned the condensed resin system into a proper overcapping resin system? It's kind of like that now, but again, let's compare to games like Star Rail where it overcaps to 2400 while we only get a max of 5 condensed resin, which translates to another 200 resin. I'm not saying we need 2400 like Star Rail does, but I think we could all agree having more than just another spare 200 resin would be nice to have. And plus, there's the crystal flies, which this might be a nitpick. Is it really necessary to have to collect these crystal flies, teleport to a city, go to a crafting table, get condensed resin, then teleport to a domain, and then spin the resin? Or better yet, we can use the crystal fly generator, wait a whole week, and now we have enough crystal flies to last 3 days. Changing this would also be helpful in those scenarios where you might have logged into the game, immediately did your condensed resin, then later realized, oh, I need 40 resin to do this one boss, and now I can't do it unless I use fragile resin because I wasted all my normal ones on condensed. And since we're still on the topic of resin, I think we should just remove daily materials. It's just frustrating and it feels dated. Just have the option to where we can choose one of the three materials for whenever we do the domain. Why should I have to wait on Tuesday, Fridays, and Sundays to collect balls from the Trial Grounds of Thunder? Why can I only collect this one book that I need on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday? It just feels like such an artificial way to stretch playing time, but if I end up coming back onto a special day and I just spur of the moment think, oh, I need to use resin on a world boss or a weekly boss for the level up materials because there's so many materials you need to get to level up characters that I forget, oh, it's Friday, I should have went to go collect some balls, and now I have to wait for Sunday to do it then. Why should the punishment for such a simple mistake range from using fragile resin to waiting literal days? This just seems like a feature that started in older gacha games, but I would like to think that the genre has moved past that, and I would like to think that Hoyoverse also thinks that because HSR and ZZZ don't have materials locked behind specific days. The local resources system isn't resin related, but I'll also just talk about it now because it takes like 3 days for the materials to reset. I don't really have a problem with that since you are exploring and it doesn't cost any resin, so you can do it at your own pace, but I would at least like there to be a dedicated store in each nation that sells all of their materials with a shop that resets every week. I know that there are some places like this, such as that one girl in Mondstadt who sells like wolf hooks, those like Barbara mushrooms, and Noel berries. And I think there's a guy who sells like the Kale and Wanderer mushrooms every 3 days. But there are materials that just aren't sold by any vendors. And we have to collect 168 of these things to max out a character. I think each nation should have a dedicated, improperly labeled store that sells every local specialty in a quantity of like 10 to 15 each week. I'm okay with having the vendors available in the open world, in that they basically do what I'm asking, because you could get 10 Valberries in a week from the Flower Girl. I just believe that having a store that has all of the nation's local specialties would be a nice quality of life change to have, in addition to a variety of vendors spread out in the world that sell some resources instead of another. World bosses, alright, the materials just sometimes don't make any sense. Sethos is a character that comes from the Sumerian desert. Okay, I get that. Why is his boss a creature from Leeway that doesn't even drop electro crystals? The only reason I see them doing this is because it's a recent boss, but this reason becomes more obsolete as more patches come along. It just completely dates the situation. There's literally an electro flower in Sumeru he could use. Let's look at Shinha and her boss, a character that was raised in Leeway her whole life, and her boss is now at the very end of Onkonomiya, an area that is locked behind the Inazuma Archon Quest, which is locked behind AR-30. Additionally, another problem I have with the bosses is that since the game is getting bigger and more characters are being added, it is becoming harder for people who are new to the game to enjoy new characters because of their materials. It's like getting a toy, but you're being told you have to wait until Christmas to use it, but it's July. Imagine if someone who just started the game did a 10-pull on character banner or standard banner and they got a Farzan. They could get her to level 40 tops, but after that, assuming they are still in Mondstadt or hell even Leeway, you would have to go from here to here, all in the dark, just because you wanted to level up a character. And then we have Fontaine. Fontaine is much more accessible than Sumeru or Inazuma because they actually give you a teleport. However, they do a job of telling the players that. Here, I'll show you the screen in which you unlock the teleport for Fontaine. Tell me if you noticed it. Alright, if you did, that's the first test. Now tell me where's the teleport that's been unlocked. Trick question, you can't. If a new player wanted to see that they could go to Fontaine, they would have to know to look at this black blob, notice nothing is there, but then zoom in and there is the teleport waypoint.
What were they thinking?
If nothing is there, why would someone think to zoom in? There is no way for a new player to know this without looking it up. Genuinely no way. Just have a pop-up after the Archon Quest notification. It's that easy. I appreciate the change to make the bosses respawn every 10 seconds. I really do. But I think they need to add a teleport change also, or at least give the players a temporary one. Just have the option to teleport to the boss, or even allow players to gain more resources through the trial run. And you can do that by making them do additional challenges, like making them trigger the elemental reaction X amount of times, or doing something in a certain time limit. Just something. And speaking of resources, for a newer player, resources are a complete nightmare. If you are starting from the beginning, you can pretty much only pick 2 characters out of your team to level up consistently between the ascension ranks. And the fact that normal enemies at lower world levels don't even drop material sometimes is just ridiculous to me. Oh, and going back into boss resources, the fact that I am AR-60 and can still get 2 drops from a boss, which also is something that a level 1 player can do, is literally insane. How is this even possible? I should be getting 3 minimum. There is never a chance I should be getting 2 at AR-60. There is literally no progression. What? They finally started adding more content towards the end game, but the early game experience and quality of life are so far behind in changes that newer players or players that are starting to feel tired after like AR-40 will probably never experience this stuff because they would just want to drop the game. Early on in Genshin, the story quests were short, concise, and usually focused on the titular character. But after I'd say the second Shogun quest, the story quest writers at Hoyoverse decided to just have a competition in the lunchroom to decide who could make the biggest piece of dog shit in the game. And by the way, I heard the person who wrote Nilu's quest won that one. They have started to pick up, however, I will give them that. I enjoyed Nouvellettes, parts of Farina, parts of Risley, Shunyun was good, and Arlecchino's was also pretty good. For the most part, I would say that Fontaine has had a redemption arc, but the end of Inazuma and Sumeru was garbage. much. The downward spiral started with around Yae Miko's in my opinion, but bad story quests did exist before hers, like Shogun Act 1. But even though that quest sucks, at least we are spending a majority of the time with the Shogun. I would much rather take pictures of her in the city than spend 15 minutes talking to an NPC talking about something that 1, will never be mentioned again, and 2, I will never see that person ever again. It also doesn't help that the quests have gotten a lot longer since the beginning of the game. The first 5-star story quest you can do in the game is Cleese. Do you want to know how long it is? It's like 40 minutes if you're watching cutscenes, 20 if you're skipping everything. It is a short and simple story, and you learn everything you need to know about Klee. Now let's look at Nilou's quest. Nearly an hour and 40 minutes. This is kind of the average length for story quests now, which I would be fine with, but they just focus on random NPCs. We care about the playable characters in the story quest, not NPC, male model B, hair color brown, Inazuma clothes orange. NPCs have their place in the game to help the world feel bigger and more alive, but the story of a character story quest should be about the titular character. Now, let's compare this quest to an actual important quest like the newest Stainslive quest, Bedtime Story. An hour and 15 to like an hour and 20 minutes. Are you kidding me? Why is the story about Ayato fixing a divorce longer than a quest about us seeing our sibling again? Why is the story about Nilou trying to save her theater and win a debate longer than the Dane quest that give us important lore, have an NPC that actually matters to the main story, and gives us a chance to see our sibling, which is the whole point of the story? Why is Nilou's quest longer? She doesn't even win the debate. Anaya has to come in and stop it so it ends. It's just comical at this point. If you're gonna have the NPCs yap for this long, then at least just add a... At first glance, this may seem like the most obvious complaint that I would have for the game, since most of my videos revolve around me having to play through the game and listen to the dialogue all over again. And while yes, this change would help me get challenges done faster by probably 5 hours, that's not my main reason for wanting these. I've played through the game multiple times without one of these, and I will continue to do so, regardless if it's ever there. I want a skip cutscene button mainly for quality of life and the world quest. I genuinely cannot understand the argument as to why it's not an option, unless there's some sort of physical limitation. I've seen one comment say that the reason they do this is to maximize time with the characters so you would like them more and want to pull for them, or that they don't add it because quests would be done so fast and people would complain about filler patches. So let me say this, as for maximizing time with the character, I feel like I know just as much about these characters before I did their quests than I do after doing their quests. If anything, being forced to spend time with a character that you don't like or don't care about only makes the experience even more frustrating. And as for the argument of quests being done fast and people complaining, let's be real, people are going to complain about everything. That's literally what I'm doing right now. If that patch doesn't end in 0, 1, or 2, there are going to be people calling it a filler patch. I am a firm believer that in any game, cutscenes should be skippable, and one of the biggest complaints about this game is the inhumane amount of yapping these nobodies do. I've had friends drop the game simply because they didn't care for the story, but the game forces them to spend hours doing it, and sometimes without you ever exploring or fighting anything, which is a topic I'll get into a little bit. It is way too frustrating of an experience when you just want to do a quick little side quest or start a world quest just to get some primos, and then you have to sit through mindless babbling. Like, come on, man, I just want to get some primos. Do I really have to set aside 90 minutes of my day just to get a third of a wish? All I'm asking for is that you just make it an option. You don't have to make it flash on the screen. Just have a little pause button or an ellipsis button on the top left or right with a drop-down menu that says skip. There are people who enjoy the game's story, yes, but there are also people who enjoy the game for the combat and the exploration. These stories can be interesting, yes, but they fill it with so much talking that it's easy for people to lose interest and just mash through the dialogue so they can get it over with. I think most people would agree that Sumeru and Fontaine have the best Archon Quests so far from a story perspective. I appreciate the general stories of these nations, but I do have a problem with both of them. That is especially prominent in Fontaine. There needs to be more game in these sections. I know that sounds like such a meathead take, but I really do find it to be a problem. Fontaine as a whole is around 6 to 9 hours, and you get to play as your favorite characters 4 times, and 3 of those are in Act 5. Well, I think for now it's like actually 6, less combat sections because of the new Dane quest, but the point still stands. Act 3 feels pretty pointless, and all of the secrets are just revealed in the next act, but then they immediately get overshadowed because the main story of Fontaine is actually about to happen. Sumeru's story is when the nations begin to have much longer Archon quests. Sumeru is close to like 8 hours at least, and the nations before that are so much shorter. Inazuma is around 3 to 4 hours if you don't include the Ayaka and Yoimiya story quest, and Liyue and Mondstadt are both around that same time if you don't take into account grinding the adventure rank. I'm okay with you doing longer stories for the Archon quests. I just want there to be less yapping with the NPCs, and I want to feel more involved with the story throughout the entire thing, rather than just being a cameraman. I want there to be more combat with these quests, but I don't want them to just slap on a treasure hoarder fight because we haven't had the player do anything in 40 minutes. Make the fights matter to the story. I'm not saying add a Dark Souls boss in between 2 talking points. Just write the fights so that they come more naturally into the story, so that way combat doesn't feel like a distraction, but rather a necessity to the plot as a whole. And you don't have to make us feel involved with just combat. They've made us think in Sumeru, which was a feature. The debate mechanic was more interesting in Fontaine, and I guess in Natlan we're probably gonna do like a spelling bee or whatever. But jokes aside, I would like to feel more involved within these Archon quests, whether it be through meaningful combat or another mechanic that they can make, so we no longer have to go through 20, 40, 50, 60 minutes of nothing but straight talking.
So talk to people again. It's
Oh my god, no! No! No, I don't want to talk to people again! Oh my god, I don't want to talk to people again! Oh my god!
These are just some fixes that I really wish they would add after playing other games. They've made some good ones in the 4.0 cycle, like the claim all button for expeditions, which is crazy that it took 3 years. Daily commissions changed to where you can explore, and that'll actually like get you the encounter points, the long-term encounter points. That was a good change. Abilities resetting in the abyss whenever you choose to restart a floor. They've been steadily making some good changes, but there's definitely some more that need to be done, in my opinion. First is dailies. We literally have a button that says claim rewards, but it's a f***ing tease. Just let us collect the rewards wherever we are. There's no reason to visit Catherine every day. Crafting menu, why can't we just have this as an option in the pause menu? We don't have to go to a table every time. You could just like write in some excuse to where it's like, we have a gadget and now we can do it wherever we are. Allow us to collect dailies in co-op. Allow the traveler to swap elements in the menu. Make artifact grinding a lot easier. Oh, and holy sh**, I just remembered, give us artifact loadouts. I nearly forgot about that. Allow constellations to be turned off and on. Allow us to buy old event weapons in the item shops, and that now reminds me about events. I have 2 things to say about events. 1, make the important ones permanent, and 2, quit recycling so many of them. Imagine a newer player does the Albedo story quest, and they just become their absolute favorite character. They save their Primo gems, wait probably like a year for an Albedo rerun, and they get him, but they can't use his best weapon. Nope, the cinnamon roll is gone forever. Get ready to use that R5 Harbinger of Dawn I know you got from all those 10 pools. And don't worry, if you're still sad about this, then you can go over to Mondstadt and buy the old balloons from previous events. Should have played this game 2 years ago, you idiot. And this isn't fully event related, but can we just talk about the updates? Am I the only one that feels that, like, some of these patches aren't even updates? There's 2 things that usually come with every update: a character / their story quest, and events. But let's break this down. If you don't pull for the character, then nothing really changed. You can do their story quest, but that's what, 90 minutes of content for a patch that lasts like a month and a half? Then we have the events, which sometimes they can be fun, but they go away from the game after like a week and a half. Or they will just reuse events like a combat domain in which you go into the door and get a buff that screen nukes the enemies. So if you've already done that event before, what changed? This is a live service game, but some of these updates don't even feel like an update. They feel like they took a step forward, then after a week and a half, they took a step back. One of the common complaints about Genshin is that there's nothing to do, which does have some truth to it, especially after like AR-55, but I would disagree with that statement for the earlier portions of the game. Genshin is a very front-loaded game. There is so much for a new player to do. You've got a ton of story quests, hangout quests, world quests, whole nations to explore, events, Archon quests, and even though I only said like 5 or 6 topics off the top of my head, there was a lot to explore with that content. The problem is just that some of that content isn't very good. It can be draining, but worst of all, it can be boring. There's a good bit of story quests, world quests, and even some Archon quests that feel like a complete waste of time. Let's look at unfinished comedy for a second. I recently had to do this for a challenge run, and it was the first time I'd ever done it, so I'll summarize the first 30 to 60 minutes of this quest. You and these kids are trying to get out of the prison. Your goal is to collect coupons in a competition in which the winners get to leave. In order to get coupons, you must talk to probably 8 NPCs and do short little quests to get your coupons. But at the end of the first part, another group got more tickets than you guys. Oh well, but then it's revealed that one of your teammates bought other workers to help your group get more coupons, so you end up winning the event. So now I just have one question. What was the point in this? A literal waste of an hour, and all I got was 40 Primo gems. 40, not even a third of a wish. They are literally free money. Make more of them, especially 5-star skins. Change the burst animations, or at least some color variations, and by that, I don't just mean turning the contrast up by 20%. Imagine if Diluc or Dia had a skin that used blue fire, or Kaching had black lightning. That might cause some problems because of how reactions look and work, but surely there has to be some capacity to alter colors, or at the very least change animations. There is so much potential with skins, and I wish we got more than just putting the leeway characters in dresses and suits for every lantern right. And also, make them purchasable via Primo gems. If someone's willing to give up 50 pulls just to get a skin for a character they like, then why can't they? I mean, we all know the actual answer to that.
Money!
But it still would just be a nice thing to have. Weapon banner, we all know it's a scam. Just separate the weapon banners like Star Rail, that's literally all you have to do. I know why it's not separated.
Money!
But whales are gonna spin regardless. There is no reason for a free-to-play player to go on weapon banner at the moment, unless they've been saving for half a year and they can maybe get both the character and the weapon, or they already have the character and they just want the weapon. If they're feeling nice, they could guarantee the weapon banner, but we all know that's not gonna happen. This one's really brief because this banner's a lost cause. I think Genshin is ready for a third banner. This is actually the one change I could see actually happening maybe early in the Natland cycle. It could be another limited character banner, a birthday banner, or a Chronicle Wishes. Either way, I just think we need another consistent banner, and also standard banner really needs an update. Please just let us pick whatever we want for our 5-star. As it stands, there is no real reason for someone with a normal account to pull on standard banner. None, literally none whatsoever. The game gives you 20 standard banner pulls at the beginning of the game. You get them for leveling characters, and other than that, it's just the monthly reset. That is it. You get pink wishes from events, the Archon Quests. There is no reason to use your Primo gems on standard banner, and if someone wants a character or weapon from that banner, then let them pick it. I'm AR60, but I've never had the Skyward Harp. I don't have Dia. I don't have the Wolf's Gravestone, and more. Just let us pick and have a reason to pull on this banner, aside from us doing the monthly reset and getting a 5-star on the banner once a year. And since we're talking about wishes, let's just talk briefly about the rewards. Does anyone else think it's funny how the Nouvelle, quote, bug fix revert gave us the same rewards as our yearly anniversary? I'm not complaining. I'll take a 10 pull any day of the week. I just wish that the game in general was this generous, especially since their sibling gives out a 10 pull for every patch, while we only get it annually. Oh gosh, this game is so funny. This is mainly here because I just want more. I don't really care about the meta reactions or any of that stuff. I really don't. I just want them to add more layers to the gameplay and have all of the elements work with each other. Can we get more elemental reactions so we don't have to wait 2 years for the off chance that we might get elements in the future? Can we just have more fun with team resonances? What if you have 4 Animo characters and you have a tornado that shows up every time you do an elemental skill? What if you have 4 crowd characters and you hit an enemy with all of your characters on your team? It freezes them. That way you can actually get freeze off without having a Hydro character on the team. I'm just listing stuff off the top of my head, but I mean, surely there's more fun to be had with the game mechanics. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're not going to make the enemies more interesting, then make our gameplay more interesting. Give Geo some cool shit. Give Animo special reactions for Geo and Dendro. There's so much that can be done with elements, and I don't want to have to wait for the chance that maybe Imaginary and Quantum could eventually come into this game in order for there to be more for us to experiment with. There are times to where it's like, we really shouldn't even have the option to speak. Just let Paimon say everything, because either our options don't matter or they just get flat out ignored. And since I mentioned Paimon, let me just give my thoughts on her, and it's not going to be some stupid comment like, I think Paimon's voice is annoying, because I don't. That's not my problem with Paimon. I understand Paimon's purpose in the game. I do not have a problem with her yapping, because it makes sense to have her there for players having a hard time understanding the material. But there's two solutions to this. Have a skip cutscene button, or at the very least, make our dialogue options matter. The worst example of this is at the end of the second days of quest, and I'll let this clip from Zach speak for itself.
By the way, what they said just now is all pretty confusing. Did you understand it at all?
Yeah, I pretty much got it.
Oh, well then, let's go over it again.
No, please don't. I chose the first option so that you would not make me go over it again.
You're like, I got it.
Oh, okay. This fine.
First off, that
Oh,
abyss
never mind.
I am okay with Paimon being in the game. Just make it so that she doesn't force herself onto everything if we don't want her to. I get that this is a game made for people of all ages, and when you do that, you have to cater towards children. But don't treat everyone like they're a child. A child can read a prompt that says, yes, I understand what was said, and no, can you repeat it? We have a joke on my channel. If there's no audio, it doesn't matter. But I do think there is some truth to that statement. There are important quests that do not have dialogue, such as the Archon quest, but I can't be the only one who feels that whenever Hoyoverse makes a quest that isn't voiced, it kind of signals to me that this quest is not going to be nearly as important as the other ones. When I hear Paimon or another character speak, whether or not I care about what they say does not matter. I am at least getting a signal that this is something important to the main story. When they don't speak anything and I'm having to read a visual novel, I get the sign that this quest will never be mentioned again in anything meaningful. I know that the Archon quest has important lore to it, but I really don't want to have to read through 11 hours of dialogue to enjoy it. This is a topic of controversy that has been brought back up. It was around for Sumeru, and with the Natlan character lineup, it's been brought back. And here are my personal thoughts on the situation. Am I surprised? Not at all. Am I disappointed? Yes. Do I think it's justified to be upset about this? Yes. If a game takes influence from your culture, then I think they should not be afraid to make important characters, not just NPCs, have different skin tones that represent people from that culture. Does this mean all that you have to do is just load into Photoshop, eyedrop tool, brown, paint bucket, and then boom, you're done? No, because there's a large variety of skin colors present in Latin American, African, and Polynesian cultures. There are plenty of designs from the Natlan lineup that do look much better with a darker skin color, especially for some characters where their designs look like they were actively made for a darker skin color. And this is even more prevalent because one of the characters that's coming out has glowing lights, but you can barely notice it because their skin is so pale. Like I said at the beginning, this is not the first time they've done this. This issue was present in Sumeru, but the hopes back then were that at least Natlan will have darker skin colors, but that isn't the case, which is why the outrage has come back. These characters are named after figures from real life cultures, so whenever someone looks up the names of Kanich, Olorun, Shilonin, this is what they will see. I love that this game uses other cultures for inspirations of their nations. It is one of my favorite aspects of Genshin, but seeing the lack of diverse skin colors is very depressing to look at. And this goes for all nations, not just Sumeru and Natlan. It gets harder to immerse yourself into this world full of different landscapes and nations when the majority of the cast share the same color. They do great jobs with the actual clothing designs of some characters, but other times they don't. Even though I don't come from African, Latin American, or Polynesian cultures, I still like to learn about them, and I like to see them represented in media. I love mythology, and I love learning about these parts of different cultures. Smite is one of my favorite games ever made, and whenever I saw the design of Olorun on Twitter and people were comparing the Genshin and Smite ones, it kind of threw me for a loop, but that's a little off topic for right now. By the way, don't play Smite. But like seeing the all-powerful supreme being of Yoruba who created the heavens and all living things, a being who has no real physical form and is everywhere at all points point look like the MC of a rip-off solo leveling manhwa. Just like, what? I know the character isn't actually supposed to be Olorun in the Genshin universe, or at least I really hope that is not the case. Next, I just hope that Shibalanke doesn't look like an isekai protagonist with a tattoo of a jaguar head on his arm. I am fully aware that this game is fictional, but if you're gonna take aspects from real-life cultures, then you should represent all the different types of people from said culture. I've long accepted that they don't care about global opinions, so I expect absolutely nothing to happen, but I still just wanted to get all of this off my chest. To end this rant off, I just want to say that I still love the game. You might be thinking that someone like me who keeps playing through the game on multiple accounts is burnt out, and the answer to that is both yes and no. I'm not burnt out on the challenge runs because believe it or not, I still actually do enjoy doing them. Well, I enjoy doing them up until a certain point, and that point's kind of like Sumeru because that's when I'm more watching a game than I am actually playing it. But I'm honestly more burnt out on my main account. I have plenty to do, but I just don't want to do it because I know that most of these quests will just be a yap fest about characters that I don't care about. When I see changes being announced for the game, it doesn't make me excited, it just makes me think, why did it take so long? Are you doing this because you're actually listening to us, or does Wuthering Waves frighten you that much? The 200 Resin announcement is honestly what made me want to make this rant, because this is a change that everyone's been asking for, including me, but I felt nothing when it happened, and at that point, I realized that there was other issues I had with the game that I needed to address. Why do we not have a better overcapping resin system? Why is our recharge still 8 minutes? Why do we have to go to Catherine every day for dailies? Why can't we just craft in the menu? Why can't we swap elements with Traveler in the menu? And like, there's so much more I could go on about. You may have noticed that a lot of my complaints revolve around like the new player experience, and that's because I go through that a lot, but the difference is I know what to do and play around it, but a newer player wouldn't. I want the game to grow, but I can completely understand why a newer player would easily drop the game. This game has just so much potential, and like, notice how I said has there and not had, because I do believe that there is still hope for this game, however small that light may be. And who knows, maybe that light is actually a train of disappointment that's coming to run me over. This game has steadily been making more quality of life changes, which is good. That's mainly what I want more of, but there's still plenty more work to be done. I want this game to grow and attract newer players, but the lack of quality of life changes and the lack of endgame makes it hard to recommend newer players and older players to come back. I remember when I was streaming and I was asked, do I like HSR or Genshin more? And I said I enjoy playing Genshin more, but if I had to recommend anyone a gacha game, it would be HSR, because it is just a much more fair experience for the player. And when you play other games, you begin to see and question Genshin's issues even more in the lack of attention they receive. Additionally, I would also like to add that for the foreseeable future, I will be going free-to-play for the Hoyoverse games, not just Genshin. I've already made my accounts for Standard Banner 5 stars and the Archons for those challenge videos. I made those accounts in December/January, so they've already got my money, but I don't want to spend more. For the Archon series, I know that I will more than likely have to spend for the Pyro Archon and the Cryo Archon, so ultimately I'll probably have to drop some cash to make those challenges and the videos for you guys. Maybe I'm lucky and I can get them without spending, but realistically it probably won't happen. If I do have to spend money on those accounts, then I will donate double the amount of that money to charity. I know that it still doesn't undo the fact that Hoyoverse has my money, but I would still like to at least give out money for a company that I know will make a good change in the real world, rather than some changes I would want in a fictional one. My decision to go free to play stems from like all the issues that I've mentioned in the video and more. I do not want to directly give Hoyoverse any of my money from my wallet until they start treating players with more respect and make more changes that we as a community have been asking for nearly 4 years. Not just the changes that I've been mentioning in this video. It pisses me off because we all want the game to do better, and we all know that they have the potential to do better, because this is the same company that listens to the complaints made towards their other games like Star Rail and ZZZ. At this point, I just want to ask them, like, why do you hate Genshin so much? It's like, I mean, I get it, but you're the one who made the game. I don't even know anymore, man. Like I said earlier, I hope this video gets dated and they, like, update everything and just start listening to us. But at the moment, I don't really have any expectations for the Natland cycle. And truthfully, I haven't had much expectations for this game for the past couple of years. Hopefully things change, but I don't really see that happening, which is probably the most depressing part about all of this. But yeah, that's the end of the video. If you guys have any thoughts on the game that you would like to share, positive or negative, just please leave them down in the comments and let's all just have a discussion and just vent. Let's just get it all out. I know that there are probably tons of issues that I missed, so I'm curious as to what you all think. Yeah, that's it for Chris at the moment. Thank you all for listening to me yap for like over half an hour, I think. But take care.